The ICC, International Criminal Court, issuing an arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin over alleged war crimes committed in Ukraine. Now, South Africa, this is important, is a signatory of the Rome Statute and does have the responsibility to execute an ICC arrest warrant if the person against whom it is issued sets foot in a country, or in this country in particular. President Putin is expected to visit South Africa here in August for the summit of BRICS. So let's find out what this could all look like. Professor David Monyae, Center for Africa Director and China Studies at UJ. And Prof, good morning to you. I appreciate your time. So now we're stuck between a bit of a rock and a hard place, namely the ICC and BRICS. Which way do we go? Good morning, Professor.
Good morning to you. I think it has put South Africa in an awkward situation. On one hand, it is a small country that it cannot enforce ICC's warrant of arrest. But at the same time, Putin is an important member, a superpower country, and I think there's no any other country would have the power to arrest him, given the fact that Russia is a nuclear power. As also, it's not a member of the ICC, so it brings a lot of challenges. But from an international perspective, it will be really tough for South Africa. But chances are high, in my view, that this meeting will go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I think you broke up for a second. You're saying the meeting will go ahead or won't go ahead?
It will go ahead. Chances are high that it will go ahead. How they're going to do it, one does not know. Whether there is room for South Africa to apply for special way of handling this meeting without getting into the ICC issues. It's something that the government has to handle. There is enough time from now to August when the BRICS summit takes place in Johannesburg. So I think the chances are either the meeting goes online where South Africa won't be able to do or expected to arrest someone in Russia, or applying special ways of allowing him to come into the country.
I almost go back to the Omar al-Bashir issue, doesn't it, as well, when there was that massive problem when he was in South Africa. There was an ICC warrant out for his arrest as well, and seemingly nothing was done. I don't get the sense, Professor, that we really felt the wrath of the world against us in that particular situation. But I can't help but think if the Russian president were to come to South Africa in August and leave without any sort of comment from our governments, knowing the global devastation that this war in Ukraine has created, that we would get away unscathed a second time.
I think the other issues for us to turn this and place it right square where it belongs. It seems that international institutions are used for geopolitics purposes. In this case, the ICC itself is becoming a joke in terms of its ability to enforce its own rules and the power that it carries. It hasn't arrested George Bush on Iraq wars. It hasn't arrested Tony Blair on Iraq and all other atrocities committed by these other powers. And selective way of applying ICC, it undermines the very same institution. And it also sets up a country such as South Africa. And therefore, in the end, it forces South Africa and other countries to really pull out of ICC. We've been here before, and I won't see any chance going forward if the ICC and other bodies continue to be abused by bigger powers for their own agendas. Therefore, I think we need to be fair. Challenges on South Africa in terms of applying its own constitution, but on the other hand, geopolitics, to fully understand that South Africa is also being abused by bigger powers.
Yeah, and I think you made a very good point as well with all those other names being mentioned as well. South Africa can't now suddenly just jump on the bandwagon with the ICC and come in hard and fast at Vladimir Putin when the ICC, as you quite rightly say, rather toothless in a lot of this as well. Where does this place us as far as Western geopolitics is concerned, Professor? Because I'm curious, because when we take a look at Russia and their relationship with China, and both of those countries and their relationship with us here in South Africa, just by default as being part of BRICS, where does it leave us very firmly geographically between the two powers? But also, where does it leave us politically between Western politics, such as the United States and Britain, and our very clear agreements with Russia and China? It puts us in a very awkward position as well.
Indeed. I think South Africa's foreign policy is quite clear. Since 1994, this is a human rights-centered foreign policy. And I think it wants to continue applying such a policy in terms of pushing and really indeed advancing peaceful resolution to conflicts, including one in Ukraine. But having said that, South Africa also wants to pursue a foreign policy that is non-aligned, an independent foreign policy in which it is not in any camp. It is not in the Western camp or the so-called East China, Russia on one hand. It wants to be right at the center, where it will have relationship with both Western countries, deep relationship, as well as deep relationship with Russia and China.
Oh, Prof, I appreciate your time. As you say, an awkward position regardless of which way you cut this up. But the South African government has to move very carefully when it comes to anything the ICC is doing, which I think you're quite right. And I think many people will agree. The ICC been toothless for quite a long time. UJ Center for Africa Director, Professor David Monyae, joining us this morning. Prof, thank you very much indeed for your time.